Just doing some of the finer details here around the eyes and correcting some of the drawing. If the drawing wasn't entirely correct first time round, I'll still see little changes that I can make, and so I'm constantly working into it. And the same applies for further glazes. If I get something wrong here, I'm not quite aware of, it'll be something I'll spot further down the line. I mean, this is quite a large brush to be using for these finer details, but as I said, I prefer it. It's just got a nice quality to it. It's quite open, it's quite soft. The end product is quite soft, but I will use finer brushes to pick out the really dark areas in the nostrils or pupils of the eye, eyelashes, things like that. But I guess for this finer modelling, this is my favourite brush. The size 1. There are artists that have an incredible attention to detail and are able to sort of capture that, but I always just find I overdo it. It's not something that I generally do in my paintings. I'm just looking for this softness in the hog's hair brush as it is. Oops, yeah, just painted on a little bit too much there and altered the shape of the neck. So yeah, use the trusted thumb as best means to get that off. So now I realise I can stand it no longer. I have to paint her t-shirt, and it's blue, ultramarine blue, a little bit of white, and this is the classic scumble. So big hog's hair brush, just get one coat all over. the highlights that I originally painted in the grisaille still show through, so I'm still able to follow that drawing. I'll just go over it very, very roughly. They're going to be something that I'll add to. There are definitely finer highlights, there are finer creases in the fabric of her t-shirt. I've got a very dirty brush there. I'm normally much better than that, so I'll have to make up for it. And still, at this stage, that's absolutely fine. It just gave a warmth to the blue rather than just adding black, which would have made it very cold. I've just used one of my brushes with some shadow tones on. And then scumbling in between, there are areas between the creases that are slightly darker. And just bearing in mind that I've still got at least 4 or 5 further glazes to go on, so the blue will get deeper and richer as I continue. It's still very crude at this stage, but you can spend as long as you want on this. Honestly, I'm not really one for great detail in fabric and the creases of the fabric. I'm not sure. I think it's probably a good discipline to try and acquire, but really I quite like just making a suggestion. If I'm painting a portrait, I'm focused on the face and the expression and the mood and the life of the sitter. I'm just making a very quick suggestion of the skin tone of her arm, and this is something that I'll further deepen with later glazes, but I didn't actually paint it in the grisaille. But anyway, yeah, that's fine. Just at the moment, it's just a suggestion. One of the things I find the most challenging of all when painting portraits of children is just how to capture youth. And generally I've found that just it's really being careful not to put too much into the shadows around the face, because obviously they're going to deepen as we all age and we all get wrinkled. But in a young child, they're so subtle. But that's just something that I'm still working on. I just find it's incredibly challenging to do that. So here I'm just trying to soften those shadow areas. It's so easy to put too much into them, and then suddenly it's just overdone, and it takes away that youthful quality of the sitter. I don't tend to get, again, with, I suppose especially with ears, I just want to suggest things. I don't want to get really bogged down in the details. And they tend to have a lot more colour than I give them, so I'm getting better at that now, just going straight in for a very, very vibrant tone from the beginning. And then later, again, it's so easy, just a really thin glaze, and suddenly it's just glowing. I don't know if ears should glow, but anyway. On my website, there's a portrait that was a really successful first glaze over. It shows the grisaille and the first glaze, just a picture, and it's a portrait of a boy called Wilfred. And I was so chuffed because the ear, I literally just did a very heavy, really, really vibrant glaze of alizarin crimson and cadmium red, and then I just suggested the inner ear with a deeper red, and it just worked. That was just enough. I didn't need to do anything else throughout the painting with that ear. It just really worked. And I'm just sharing that to highlight that it can be just the merest suggestion or just a slight gesture that in the eye of the viewer from a distance will just conjure that impression or suggestion of whatever it is of an ear in this case. And then I think mixing that red just inspired me to go back over the lips and just add a little bit more colour. I can use just a little bit of the blue that I previously mixed just to cool it down if it was just too much. Again, there's something I've realised as well, painting a few portraits over the last months, is that with the top lip, quite often that's just so close to the the space between the nose and the lip. It's not a dark colour at all, and that can be something that's very easy to overemphasise. So it's just being aware of how close they are. They're almost the same, and I've actually probably done it too much here, and in a later glaze I'll go back over it with a velatura and just soften it again because it's just too much. I'm coming to the end of the first glaze now, so I'm just going over areas. There's not really too much more I can do, but I'm just sort of checking and continually working into the painting. But this is going to be the end coming up of the first session, and it's quite stressful. It's certainly stressful being filmed, but in the end I was really very pleased with this as a first glaze, because as I've stressed again and again, it's just like starting with the grisaille all over again, because the grisaille is still there. It just has a little bit of colour added to it, and that colour I can cool down or warm up, and I can change the drawing. It's just it's an ongoing process. And quite often I'll come back to the first glaze when I've let it dry for a while. I'll try and put it away so I can't see it, and then I just come back, have a look, and then I can immediately see that, oh yeah, well that didn't work, or I better just develop that a little bit more, or that worked really well. I'll just see what it looks like, but try and surprise myself. Another technique to do that is see it in a mirror. That can be an amazing way of just seeing it with fresh eyes. You can just see exactly where you've gone wrong with the drawing. That's something I learned just looking at other artists' work. I have done it before when I haven't had a mirror handy, but I've just taken a photo and I've maybe on my phone I've just flipped it, or just looking at it on a computer I've just flipped it over so I can just see it flipped horizontally against the reference, and then just bang, there you go, you can just see exactly what you've got wrong, or what's gone, or what's worked well. So just doing the last fine tuning before leaving it, because I know I can just pick it up where I left off. But in a second I'll also show, because I've chosen not to film the second glaze and the third glaze and fourth and fifth, etc. But I'll just show us, a selection of glazes of this portrait as it progressed. So you can just imagine that each session probably took about an hour again, maybe a bit less actually, but you can just see them in turn, and it gives you an idea that it's just repeating the same process. That's why I just think it's enough just to show the first glaze. But here you go, they're just going to come up now, and that's the end of the first glaze.